Yo, what's good, everybody? My name is Cosmic, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Opinion Stated, where I give unfiltered, opinionated sports takes. Let's go. Yo, what's good, everybody? My name is Cosmic, and I want to welcome you back to my channel, Opinion Stated. Man, it has been a while. It's been far too long since I've made a video. Feels like 8-9 days or so. And I've kind of been taking my time with this particular video before just diving right into it and just producing it just for the sake of having content. I really wanted to take my time to make sure that my comments and my commentary surrounding it were succinct. And unless you live under a rock, you're unfamiliar with the idiotic, ignorant comments made in a Wall Street Journal interview by Anthony Edwards. So I want to address that. But before we jump into the content here today, I want you to do me a huge favor if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video so that we can fly through the algorithm and get into more visual space of those on YouTube who are searching for this kind of content. Man, this video is going to be full of what I hope to be wisdom imparted, and it's going to display a lot of youthful amorous and the ignorance that can come as a result of this youthful amorous, which, if not redirected in positive space, man, can just cause problems. And so that we're going to address here in this episode, which I'm going to entitle Modern NBA Fans' Biggest Flaw Exposed. Modern NBA fans' biggest flaw exposed. So again, unless you were living under a rock, you're unfamiliar with the comments that were made by Anthony Edwards in that Wall Street Journal interview last week. So instead of just kind of paraphrasing through, what was said, which, I've heard covered a lot in the mainstream media and also in, this kind of social media space. So it's, instead of just kind of paraphrasing and saying, well, he said this, he said that, I want to actually read the article. So I'm not sure how many of you have actually read the article, but we're going to start with, this article from Sports Illustrated entitled Anthony Edwards blasts old NBA generations while praising Michael Jordan. So the Minnesota Timberwolves superstar didn't hold back again. Ooh, buddy. It's been a tremendous 12 months for Anthony Edwards. He grew from a budding star to a full-blown superstar as he led the Minnesota Timberwolves to their deepest playoff run in decades. He captured the attention of the NBA with ludicrous dunks and even more ludicrous sound bites. Then, Edwards was off to Paris, where he played a pivotal role in helping Team USA secure another gold medal while playing alongside three of the best basketball players in history. In simpler terms, Edwards has been smack in the middle of the spotlight for quite a while. And even now, with 2 months off before the 2024-2025 NBA season, the Wolves star doesn't seem eager to give up anytime soon. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, released on Tuesday, last Tuesday now, we're 8 days past, Edwards was asked how his generation of basketball players compared to the ones that came before, a regular talking point in NBA discourse. Edwards answered by boldly calling out those prior generations for lacking skill other than Hall of Fame guard Michael Jordan. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it, Edwards said. First of all, first of all, the article could have ended, the interview could have ended right there. Like, that question, they could have redirected to the next question. Like, literally. It probably should have ended right there. With his, Anthony Edwards, his bold, his bold response being, I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. He said it, but then proceeded to speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now. But I don't think anybody had skill back then. See, he didn't watch it, but now he's stuck in this space of just thinking. I ain't watch it, but I don't think. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe They were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. Wow, bro. Regardless of how you may feel about Edwards' opinion, it's objectively funny to preface with, I can't speak on it, before going on to speak on it, quite strongly at that. Nobody has ever accused a 23-year-old of lacking for confidence, though. Now, Edwards' praise of MJ will land well with much of the basketball viewing population, but the rest of his take will not, to say the least. The common argument from the likes of Charles Barkley is that the NBA of the past actually required more skill to be great than it does now because it was much harder to score before offensive minded rule changes and the embrace of the 3-point line. It's safe to say those who believe the same will heartily disagree with Edwards' evaluation and will probably let him hear about it. You don't say. So, I mean, obviously, this brother's been getting slammed and dragged all over the place, much as it was stated in that Sports Illustrated article. And that Sports Illustrated article, well written, was written by Liam McKeon. So, to give him credit there, and Sports Illustrated. But as illustrated through the article, you'll get the likes of, and this was just predictive, that it's going to land well with some people, man. Some people are going to be, woo, they're going to be heated. They're going to clap back, and folks have clapped back. But I wanted to give context to full writings and full scale comments made, not just a Michael Jordan comment, because I feel like there's some others. There's some other little things that are shared in each of these articles that I'm going to share with you that is noteworthy and kind of actual really good talking points, because they, in my opinion, underscore the issue here. The issue not just with Anthony Edwards, but the issue plaguing the modern NBA fan. One being that Anthony Edwards, as stated in this article, is only 23 years old. He literally just celebrated his 23rd birthday. His 23rd birthday. It's 2024. It's 2024 right now. That means in the year 2000, Anthony Edwards didn't even exist. That means throughout this entire course of the 90s, that decade of the 90s, he didn't exist. The brother's new. He's new here. Bro, we've been here for a while. You are new. Gifted and talented and everything that you do, bro, but you are new here. You are new and disrespectful at that. Another article that I want to get into really quickly here is Anthony Edwards trashes old school NBA. Nobody has skill except Michael Jordan. And this article was written and published, rather, on usatoday.com and written by Scooby Axon. Shout out to Scooby Axon. Trash talking is a spirited art form, and those who can do it best are known for their skill and ability to run their mouths and put down opponents or detractors at a moment's notice. Enter Minnesota Timberwolves guard and gold medalist Anthony Edwards, who's become one of the NBA's stars, not only for his play, but also for his playful chiding, particularly about Olympic teammate Kevin Durant and analyst Charles Barkley. When asked how his generation of basketball differed from older generations, the 23-year-old Edwards had more than a few thoughts about the old school NBA, particularly the 90s. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it, Edwards said to the Wallstreet Journal. Edwards then continued to speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then, he said. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas retorted on social media to Edwards saying, propaganda works. So be careful what you choose to believe. Zeke, a very interesting individual to talk propaganda, but we'll get into that in just a second. Back to the article. Edwards also had a few thoughts on championships. I don't know too many guys who won a championship super young besides Kobe, Edwards said. Other than him, everybody took years and years of losing to get there. I just want to keep taking the next step. And on if he is bad at anything, he retorted, I haven't found it yet, he said. So, again, I wanted to point out in just this USA Today article, the USA Today article just introduced a differing, question that was asked and a different answer that was given. in addition to the ignorant comment about Michael Jordan being the only one that had skill. But it offered, the championship perspective and the mindset and mentality, or his mindset, as it pertains to winning a championship. And the brother still has to pay his dues. His team did a very good job through the playoffs this past season. They gradually improved since he's been a part of this young Minnesota Timberwolves team. Now, if you go back through like some of my literal, like very, very first videos, it was during the playoffs when I started this channel back in May. And I was like, man, playing the way that they were playing, I didn't think they could lose. Not the way they played against Denver. So I was really big on them too. I was really high on them as well. And but the reality is, things happen, and you still have to pay your dues, and you have to gradually pay your dues. And I think that if anything could be an indication to him to take your time, young man, allow progression to take place the way that it's supposed to. Don't get ahead of yourself. It is the past this past postseason, which should be allowing him the space and the grace to do that. But here he is firing off at the mouth, again. Another article produced by CBS Sports or published by CBSSports.com. Anthony Edwards throws shade at past generations, says Michael Jordan was the only player with skill. This article was written by Isabel Gonzalez. Shout out to Isabel Gonzalez. Minnesota Timberwolves star Anthony Edwards has started making a name for himself in the NBA despite only being 23 years old, but he recently ruffled some feathers with a hot take on older basketball generations. In a recent interview with the Wallstreet Journal, Edwards was asked how his generation compares to the ones before him, and he said the only player who had skill back in the day was Michael Jordan. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it, Edwards said. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. We've heard that now as a running point in the 3 articles, and you guys have already heard that. New information though. As expected, this comment didn't sit well with everyone. One of the most notable reactions came from 12-time All-Star and Basketball Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, who was one of Jordan's top rivals in the 80s and the early 90s. Propaganda works, so be careful what you choose to believe, Thomas said. In his docu-series, The Last Dance, Jordan said that no matter how much he hated him, being Isaiah Thomas, he still respected Thomas's talent and described him as the best point guard of all time behind Magic Johnson. Thomas was in attendance during Jordan's Hall of Fame acceptance speech in 2009, and Jordan thanked him, along with other rivals, for giving him extra motivation to compete. That being Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. So clearly there's respect there, that Michael Jordan is speaking of or kind of spoke of and he used. And we got a chance to see both sides of it for those who actually tuned into The Last Dance. If you haven't seen it, man, you got to watch the docu-series The Last Dance. But Mike gave some context to, what his issues with Isaiah, are present day and what they have been over the years. And it had nothing to do with the Detroit Pistons beating him up or being a team that helping to sharpen him into the great winner that he became in terms of his basketball career, to go on to win 6 championships. He had to be refined by that test of fire. That test of fire was the Detroit Pistons. That wasn't the issue. So he still has an enormous amount of respect for the basketball players. He doesn't. What Michael Jordan did not have respect for was how they, like sore losers, walked off the court when Jordan's Bulls finally got better and got good enough to actually beat them, and they beat them in the playoffs. And Isaiah and the team walked off the court before the time it expired and didn't shake hands. So clearly there's respect there. Isaiah can be quoted as actually, showing some respect and deference to Jordan as well. And I want to get into some of that comment or some of that commentary. And so I want to do that right here. Take a listen. Let's take a listen.
The thing that amazes me about Michael Jordan and about I think the rest of the players in the league is his stamina and his endurance. The thing that I wasn't able to do the thing that Magic wasn't able to do. We succumbed to injuries. We didn't have the type of stamina, the type of energy level that Michael seems to possess every single night, whether he's playing against the worst team in the league or the best team in the league. He has an energy level that's unmatched by any other player or any other athlete that I've seen in professional sports, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, track, tennis. His energy level is so much greater than ours. It seems that night in, night out, he's there performing at a level that we frankly just weren't able to reach, and that's why he's there tonight, healthy and trying to three-peat. And Magic and I succumbed to injury.
Simple fundamentals: the pump fake, wait till he flies by you, goes up and sticks the shot with perfect form. Jordan has all the moves. You know, everybody concentrates on his great moves, but look at the simple things. Just a little easy pump fake, lines it up, gets himself square, and goes up in perfect form. That's what makes him the great player. It's not the flashy things. It's the little simple things that he does. It's his fundamental base combined with his skill base that makes him the greatest player to ever play.
And you say that without hesitation.
Without hesitation.
You weren't always convinced. There was a point maybe midway through his career where you wouldn't have given him that honor, but eventually he won you over, right?
Well, when you're playing against him, you know you're not going to say that because you got to come out and compete against him. But now sitting over here in the mic and being out of the game for 3 or 4 years and watching what he's done over the last couple of years, without question, this guy's the greatest that I've ever seen play.
And so I wanted to highlight those comments because, you know, just something really, really key, you know, that he said there, but also just to indicate how these comments were made by commentator Isaiah Thomas during the Jordan first three-peat, you know, or that dispensation of time where Jordan was literally on the brink of competing for the third championship of his career and completing the first of 2 three-peats. And so, yeah, so he's paid to say nice things, or he's paid to be on TV and to not be a hater. Most could take that position. But it's not just what he said. I mean, it's not just, you know, the job that he has, or that he sounds like he's buttering, you know, up to Michael Jordan. No, he stated in a very, very in-depth analysis what makes Michael Jordan great. And so those comments I really wanted for people to hear and for them to sink in, because greatness is not some immeasurable thing. You know, greatness is measurable. And what he said about Jordan's greatness is, he said it's his skill base combined with his skill set make him great. It ain't just what we thought we saw. There's a base of skill, his skill set, bro, that is like, man, this dude, this is greatness. And it happens across the spectrum of industries, not just basketball. But I wanted to highlight Isaiah's comments because perhaps those marked a space in time. And it'll make more sense as to what I mean as we move forward. Back to the article. Despite throwing some shade at all past players who are not Jordan, the comment doesn't seem out of character from Edwards because he has always shown a lot of admiration for the 6-time NBA champion. He got a lot of comparisons to Jordan last season, but he thought it went too far and didn't want to hear any more of it. That being Anthony Edwards. I wanted to stop, he told Fox Sports when discussing the comparisons. He's the greatest of all time. I can't be compared to him. And I agree. I agree 100%. I think it is really easy for us to beat this kid up, you know, at this point. I'm not going to take the time to call him names or to harp on how idiotic he is, or, you know what I mean, to badmouth him in that regard. Like, that stuff's not important. I think that there are flashes of where he gets it, and then there's just some places where he just kind of, out of his youthful amorous, just kind of speaks out of turn. Man says some things that are just not founded in reality and founded with research, and so you can, you know, basically, quite frankly, make an ass of yourself, which is what he did with this particular article. But I don't think that it makes him a bad person, so I don't want to vilify him in that regard. I kind of want to speak about some of the things, like the comment that he just made saying, yo, I think it's gone too far. Stop comparing me to the greatest of all time, being Michael Jordan. Yo, I'm not him. And he's right. He's not him. But it's not just Anthony Edwards. And because I think that, clearly with him saying, hey, man, I ain't that guy, it's not his fault that he's being compared to Jordan. It's you all's fault. It's the pundits in the media, the mainstream media. It's you fools on YouTube with your YouTube channels. It's puppeting the message from the idiots in mainstream media who are drawing these comparisons. You know what I mean? It's the fandom of the modern fan who just wants so badly to compare something present with something that is being touted as great in the past. Greatness is measurable. Greatness is just not about me being able to get on the court and reverse, and you know what I mean, or shoot a mid-range that looks like Jordan's. Jordan's greatness is measured in his accomplishments. So modern fans, and when I say modern fans, I do not just mean the general public. I'm talking about former players, present players who fancy themselves fans, people in the media, mainstream media, people in the social media space. Stop it with the comparisons. I've heard that comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is a thief of joy. And you guys, instead of enjoying Anthony Edwards and his being a good, really, really good basketball player so far, really good basketball player, he has all the measurables to potentially be a great, but he hasn't gotten there yet. Instead of us just enjoying that, we're like, oh, he looks like this person. He looks like Mike. He's like the next Mike. He's like the second coming of MJ. Like, he's not. Just let him be him. Let's just enjoy that. Another individual who's been getting a lot of chat or getting a lot of traction, social media wise, over recent months, especially since the Olympics, has been one Stephon Marbury. Stephon Marbury had comments to make about Anthony Edwards after this past season's playoffs. I want us to take a listen to what Stephon Marbury had to say as well, and then I'll come back and comment. Let's take a listen.
So what are your thoughts on Anthony Edwards and the way he's performing in the postseason? I believe he's Michael Jordan's son. You can't tell me otherwise, but what do you think about the dude?
At first, I looked at him and I said, wow, Michael Jordan all over reincarnated. And then as time went on, I started to listen to him. And the more and more I listened to him, I started to hear my old self of how I felt. And, I was saying to myself, I can remember many conversations that we had about what we were going to do in the NBA when we were in college going to the NBAs. You know what I'm saying? But when I hear this kid speak and talk, I'm going to respect him and say, I won't say Michael Jordan anymore. I would just say Anthony Edwards, because I think for what he's doing to the league, as he said, I'm putting everybody on notice. You don't tell everybody you putting people on notice and still go out. You go out like people try to take your head off in the NBA. He's taking people's heads off.
Facts.
You got to pay respect and homage to it, because the things that he's doing on the court, we see. Like, for me, I'm seeing flashes of Michael Jordan, but I'm not. When I say I see flashes, like, I see things that I think Jordan didn't do. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, when I say that, like, I'm seeing flashes of Jordan. I'm seeing things that I never seen Jordan do in the game. You know what I'm saying? I seen him do everything in between that 3-point line, in between there. 3-point line, he really wasn't a 3-point. He wasn't really a 3-point shooter. That's why George Gervin said you got to kill him with a lot of twos. When you look at this guy Anthony Edwards, different. Like, there's no more comparing him to Michael Jordan for me.
And there shouldn't be for anybody. Honestly, there shouldn't be any more comparisons. Like, knock it off with the comparisons. It's weird and it's annoying. Because even in the words of Stephon Marbury, you say, well, I say I see flashes of Jordan. And what I mean by that, he says, then to kind of weirdly say, I'm seeing things that Jordan didn't do. So you see flashes of Jordan, and the reason that you're saying that is because you see Anthony Edwards doing things that Jordan didn't do. And then you state that the things that you saw him do that Jordan didn't do was you saw Jordan do everything inside or 3-point line, from the 3-point line to the basket. So then you're just seeing Anthony Edwards shoot a volume of threes. That's a little bit different than Jordan's game, or a lot different. Because just in the era where basketball was being played, the emphasis was not on volume 3-point shooting. They were not shooting 20, 25 3-pointers a game, 30. You classically see teams in the modern NBA, present day NBA, shooting 30 plus 3-pointers per game as a team. 30 plus is crazy work. It's crazy. It's now common today. But when I was playing, when I came up playing basketball, bro, you didn't shoot that many through. Nobody did. Nobody did. I mean, a person might get up 10 threes, but they would have to have hit already like 5, 6 of them to still have the green light by a coach to just keep shooting them. Like, seriously, yo, that just wasn't a thing. And but again, I wanted to highlight the Stephon Marbury, comments, just because I think that the way that he capped that off by just saying, at least that there'll be no more comparisons from his perspective. You know what I mean? Like, that was enough to kind of sum it up. And again, just to drive home my point, I think that everybody should knock it off. All of you, knock it off. Knock off the comparisons. Again, with comparison being the thief of joy. You know what I mean in that regard. So if we continue to spend this time, comparing, we don't get a chance to really enjoy. So I just want to spend more time in enjoyment, and it might keep then this kid from putting his foot, or in his mouth, or future generations or future iterations of Anthony Edwards from putting their foot in their mouth when making or answering questions inside of an interview space. I want to get into a quick soundbite from one of my favorite new YouTubers. I heard her torch the scene on another podcast, and I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, so I don't want to misquote and call it, because I'm subscribing to so many different YouTube channels now with sports takes, etc. So, but anyway, I heard her call in and just give some takes, and I was like, man, I really wish she had a channel, because she's super good. But her name is Dominique, and Dominique is the voice behind Sports T here on social media, on YouTube. So if you haven't checked out her channel, please do so after this sound clip. You'll understand why I'm such a huge fan. I wanted to get into this sound clip because it actually underscores my point, or a further point that I want to drive home. Let's take a listen to Dominique.
Honestly, as ignorant as the interview was and those statements were that he made, I'm on the side of he really just doesn't know and wasn't sure what to say. So, Stephen A., he mentioned Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, who, by the way, got us kind of into this mess by the infighting that he's been having with his own, players from his era.
So yeah, so two things that Dominique stated. So two things. One being, where she led in with the ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean that you're stupid. Ignorance just means that you don't know. The word ignorance, by definition, just means that you just don't know. And so Anthony Edwards just doesn't know. He just doesn't know any better. And it's okay not to know. But to anybody listening, when you don't know, do the research before you start speaking out of turn. Do the research. That way you don't make yourself look crazy. She mentioned and circled back to Isaiah Thomas and how he can be sourced in this with this infighting that he's been doing. And she made the parallel between, this is kind of making it easy. And I think that because of the Isaiah Thomas completely switched gears from the positive soundbite that I played you, where he's giving these glowing analysis and remarks about Jordan, to all of a sudden what he's been doing in recent years has been quite frankly deplorable. In the disrespect that he has shown through speech in comparisons, Jordan to LeBron, and saying that LeBron is a better basketball player than Michael Jordan. All these things have just been lies. And as he talked about in his own response on X, propaganda, be careful what you believe. I think that he, pot calling the kettle black in this space, is reaping what he sowed. And this is why. the Anthony Edwards of the world, or and these sports pundits in general, have been allowed to be disrespectful to greatness because greatness has been disrespectful to greatness. How can we expect that a younger generation, so my kids are supposed to, or who are looking up to me as an example, see that I'm disrespectful to their grandparents? Do you think that's going to help teach them respect for their elders? It won't. They should be respecting me as their elder and also the elders. But they're not going to respect any of us if they hear me saying, well, these people ain't, and I'm better than them. And they're going to take on that same air. And this is exactly what has been happening. You cannot elevate before the greatness reaches its measure. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. They may potentially even stunt this brother's growth in terms of his mindset and mentality and hunger, because you're already telling him you've made it. Bro, you already Jordan, bro. They're already comparing you to Jordan at this stage. You can't do no wrong. Might lose his competitive hunger and drive. That can't really be what anybody wants. Stop the comparisons. So that was Dominique from Sports T. I have another YouTuber that I began to follow and who I subscribe to, and hopefully you'll subscribe to both. Chuck from Charge the Game. So I want to get into some comments that Chuck made as well that help to kind of underscore my point as well. Let's get into those comments here.
Because we are in awe of Anthony Edwards, especially with the historic run that he made during this past playoffs, making it to the Western Conference Finals. Dude was straight balling. I mean, like literally like straight balling, making a name for himself, and just making a reputation. The comparisons to Michael Jordan, and I just think a lot of this has gone to his head.
Precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself, Chuck. I think a lot of that has just went to his head. This is why it will make it easy for him to reference Jordan in his comments as he says, well, nobody has skill but Jordan. He might sound crazy to me and to a whole bunch of you to say that nobody had skill back then. So, of course, he'd have to, as a prerequisite, throw Jordan into the mix. But it makes it easier for him to throw Jordan into the mix as a person, as the only one who had skill when he's being compared to Jordan. So, yeah, I mean, I'm skilled. So if I'm being compared to him, like, of course, he was the only one back then that has skill. It's gone to his head. You guys are comparing this dude to greatness, and it's gone to his head. Am I suggesting that Anthony Edwards is not a good basketball player? No, he's incredible. He's incredible. But when you guys start, if I was just to bust a note right here during this show, then people jumped in my comments, were like, you're like the next Luther Vandross for your Luther Van, without giving respect to the music and to the work and the body of work of a Luther Vandross would be disrespectful. As disrespectful as the comparisons on that level of greatness with Jordan and Anthony Edwards. It's gone to his head, bro. It's gone to his head. It's clear. It's clear. So I just wanted to point that out. Last but not least, as one of the articles mentioned, we had the great Irvin Magic Johnson, chimed in as well. Stephen A. Smith, with his messy ass, decides to ask Irvin a question. And it was an honest question. I just like Stephen A. Smith is just so sneaky with, like, and I know he's a journalist, so it's just what they do. But anyway, the question was posed on during some kind of a summit or something where they were seated to have a discussion, and Magic Johnson chimed in on Anthony Edwards and his opinion on what he heard. Let's tap into that really quick.
Anthony Edwards just said the other day that there really wasn't any skilled players in the NBA back in the day outside of Michael Jordan. That's what he's saying. Right. Your response to that, Irvin Magic Johnson? Well, I don't never respond to a guy that's never won a championship. There's not nothing to really say he didn't win a college championship. I don't know if he even won a high school championship. So
Yeah. So yeah. So to Magic's comments, and you know, many of you are getting, you've heard these sound clips and the quote of exactly what he said covered here a couple of times, but you know, I just want to share a different insight and perspective on it. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at it like, oh, what a clap back. Oh, got him. I think that Magic is well within his right to respond the way that he did. If he perceived Anthony Edwards' comments as disrespect, to just say, hey, young fella, you know, I got 5 of them. 5 rings. You ain't have 0 to this point of your career. None. Good luck getting 1 before I'll even entertain your discourse or entertain your antics or entertain anything that you say out of your mouth. None of it has validity until you win something. I can understand that. But I think that a healthier approach would just be for him to give the young fella some encouragement, to let wisdom speak in that regard, and not to have it sound like such a clap back. You know, you can say, hey man, the young fella's got to learn. I came into the league and I was that age too. I remember me at 23. I was a piece of work. I thought the world revolved around me too. I had to learn some things in this professional environment, this professional industry, and around these other professionals who had come before me, who helped to mold me into the player that I became, and I'm grateful for that. So the young fella should probably give me a call, man. I could tell him some things, and we could educate him. We could sit him down and show him some film. Let him talk to some of the greats that we are blessed to still have alive. You know what I mean? Just to bring him up to speed on what's happening with the game and how we help to elevate the game into the space that he's playing in right now, able to earn the money and the recognition received that he's able to on our hard work, on our legacies in this game. It's just a more healthy way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's much more healthy. I think that the way that it's been done so far, even as we spoke about Isaiah Thomas, you know, not using his platform properly, I think that, you know, it's just time for a change so that we don't stay into this toxic space of negativity. You know what I mean? Around our addressing the youthful amorous and the ignorance. And again, so I wanted to end speaking, you know, in this episode about the modern NBA fans' biggest flaw and exposing it. You know, I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted and I took my time to go through and highlight and make my points clear. And hopefully I was able to do so. If you enjoyed the content, as I said before, then please subscribe to the channel. Like this video also to help to boost us through the algorithm. It's been a lot of fun. Happy to be back. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, blessings.